The day Amara finally met someone she couldn't intimidate was the day everything changed. She stood face to face with a girl who looked exactly like her, same proud eyes, same stubborn chin, same crossed arms. But this girl wasn't backing down, and for the first time in her 17 years, Amara felt something she had never felt before. She had finally encountered her equal. What happened next would shake her to her very core, but before we get there, let me tell you how the most stubborn girl in Lagos got to this impossible moment. Amara was born with fire in her belly and iron in her spine. From the time she could walk, she did exactly what she wanted, when she wanted, how she wanted. Her mother, Chinyu, was a respected market woman in the bustling Ikeja market, known for her fine fabrics and her gentle wisdom. People came from 3 neighborhoods away to ask Chinyu for advice. But her own daughter, Amara, wouldn't listen to a single word. When Amara was 7, her mother told her not to climb the tall mango tree behind their compound because the branches were weak. Amara climbed it anyway and fell, breaking her arm. When the doctor wrapped her arm in a white cast, Amara didn't cry. She just glared at her mother as if the fall was somehow Chinyu's fault. When Amara was 12, her mother warned her about a group of older girls who were known for bullying younger students at school. They called themselves the Queens of Victoria Island, though they actually lived in a modest neighborhood nearby. Amara marched right up to them the next day and told them they weren't queens of anything. She came home with a torn uniform and a black eye, but she was grinning. The queens never bothered anyone in Amara's class again, but they also never forgot the disrespect. By the time Amara turned 16, she had a reputation throughout their neighborhood in Lagos. Teachers stopped trying to correct her. Neighbors stopped offering advice. Even her own father, Emeka, who worked as a bus driver and was known for his booming voice and strong opinions, had learned to save his breath. Amara would smile sweetly, nod her head, and then do exactly the opposite of what anyone suggested. Her mother never stopped trying, though. Chinyu would sit with her daughter in their small living room, under the whirring ceiling fan, and speak in that calm voice that had soothed 1,000 worried customers. She would tell Amara about the importance of listening, about how wisdom came from learning from others, about how pride could be a person's downfall. Amara would look at her phone, examine her nails, or stare out the window at the busy street below, where downfall buses honked and vendors called out their wares. One evening, Chinyu tried a different approach. She told Amara a story about a princess from old Nigeria who refused to listen to anyone. The princess was so stubborn that she ignored warnings about a dangerous spirit in the forest. The spirit trapped her in a mirror world where she could only escape by learning humility. Amara laughed and said, "Mama, those are just stories for children. This is modern Lagos, not some village from 100 years ago. There are no spirits, no mirror worlds, no magic." Chinyu sighed and touched her daughter's cheek gently. "My daughter, not all truths come in the form we expect. Sometimes the old wisdom appears in new clothing." Amara rolled her eyes and went to her room, plugging in her earbuds and scrolling through social media until she fell asleep. The trouble really began 3 weeks before Amara's 17th birthday. Her mother's sister, Auntie Ngozi, was getting married in their home village of Umuse, a 5-hour drive from Lagos. The whole family was expected to attend, and there would be a special ceremony where the young women of the family would receive blessings from the elders. Chinyu told Amara that she must come, that she must wear the traditional wrapper and blouse, and that she must show respect during the ceremonies. Amara refused. She said she had plans with her friends. She said traditional ceremonies were boring and outdated. She said she would not wear a wrapper because she only wore jeans and sneakers. The argument lasted for days. Emeka tried to intervene, but Amara simply turned her back on him. Chinyu begged, reasoned, and finally said something she had never said before. "Amara, if you do not come to this ceremony, if you do not receive the blessing of the elders, you will regret it. There are some things in this world that we do not fully understand, and refusing to respect them has consequences." Amara laughed in her mother's face. What consequences, Mama? Will the ancestors come and haunt me? Will I turn into a toad? These are just superstitions to control people. On the day of the wedding, Chinyo and Emeka left for Umeo's with heavy hearts. Amara stayed behind in their apartment, feeling victorious and free. She called her best friend, Zainab, and they made plans to go to the new mall in Lekki. But when Zainab arrived at Amara's door that afternoon, something strange happened. Zainab looked at Amara with an odd expression. "Did you get a new mirror or something? You look different." Amara checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. She looked exactly the same. "You're seeing things, Zainab. Let's just go." But as they walked down the stairs of the apartment building, the landlord's wife, Mama, turned, gasped when she saw Amara. What is this? Why are there two of you?" Amara and Zainab turned around, confused. There was no one behind them. Mama was staring at Amara with wide, frightened eyes. She quickly made a sign with her fingers and hurried back into her apartment, muttering prayers under her breath. Amara and Zainab looked at each other and laughed nervously, deciding that Mama was just being dramatic as usual. They took a taxi to the mall, and everywhere Amara went, people stared. Not the usual stares she got for her pretty face and confident walk, but different stares. Uncomfortable stares. Fearful stares. A small child in the food court started crying and pointing at her. An elderly man selling newspapers outside the mall dropped his stack of papers and backed away when she walked past. Amara tried to shake off the weird feeling. Maybe everyone was just having a strange day. She and Zainab shopped, ate suya from her favorite spot, and took silly pictures by the fountain. But Zainab kept looking at her strangely, and twice she asked, "Are you sure you're feeling okay? You seem like you're not completely here." When Amara got home that evening, she was exhausted and confused. She dropped her shopping bags by the door and headed to the bathroom to wash her face. She turned on the light, looked up at the mirror, and screamed. Standing in the mirror, wearing the exact same clothes, with the exact same face, was another girl. But this girl wasn't a reflection. She was moving differently, staring back at Amara with a cold, challenging smile that Amara had never seen on her own face. Amara stumbled backward, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She blinked rapidly, rubbing her eyes, convinced she was seeing things. Maybe she had eaten something bad at the mall. Maybe she was getting sick. But when she looked again, the girl in the mirror was still there, and she was laughing. "Who are you?" Amara whispered, her voice shaking despite her effort to sound brave. The girl in the mirror tilted her head. "I'm you. Or rather, I'm the you that you've been creating all these years. Every time you refused to listen, every time you pushed away wisdom, every time you thought you knew better than everyone else, you fed me. You made me stronger. And now, I'm strong enough to exist on my own." Amara shook her head. "This isn't real. This is just stress or bad food or something. You're not real." "Then walk away," the mirror girl said with a shrug. "But you can't, can you? Because deep down, you know exactly what's happening. Your mother warned you. Your auntie's wedding had protective ceremonies that would have shielded you from this. But you refused to listen, as always." Amara wanted to run, but her legs felt like they were made of concrete. She forced herself to turn away from the mirror and walked quickly to her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. She sat on her bed, breathing heavily, telling herself over and over that it wasn't real. She grabbed her phone to call Zainab, but her hands were trembling so badly she could barely hold it. Before she could dial, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Her bedroom mirror, the full-length one beside her closet, was showing something impossible. The reflection of her room was slightly different. The bed was unmade in the reflection, but Amara's bed was neatly made. The curtains were closed in the reflection, but they were open in her real room. And standing in the reflection, watching her with those same challenging eyes, was the other girl. "You can't escape me by running to another room," the mirror girl said, her voice somehow coming through the glass clearly. "I'm part of you now. I'm in every reflective surface. Every mirror, every window, every screen. Everywhere you look, you'll see me." Amara threw a pillow at the mirror, but it just bounced off harmlessly. The mirror girl didn't even flinch. She just smiled that cold smile and said, "Is that how you solve all your problems? By throwing things and hoping they go away? What do you want from me?" Amara demanded, trying to keep the fear out of her voice. "I want what you want. Freedom. Control. To do whatever I please without anyone telling me what to do. The difference is, I'm better at it than you. I don't have your doubts, your small moments of guilt, your tiny hidden wish that maybe, just maybe, you should have listened to your mother sometimes. I'm pure defiance. Pure stubbornness. And I'm going to show you what that really looks like." The mirror girl reached forward, and her hand began to push through the glass as if it were water. Amara scrambled backward on her bed until her back hit the wall. The hand kept coming, then an arm, then a shoulder. The mirror girl was climbing out of the mirror into Amara's room. Amara did the only thing she could think of. She grabbed her phone and ran out of her bedroom, out of the apartment, and down the stairs. She ran into the street, not caring that it was getting dark, not caring that her neighbors were staring. She ran until she couldn't breathe, until her lungs burned and her legs ached. She finally stopped in front of a small church 3 blocks away, the kind with bright lights and loud music pouring out of the windows. She collapsed on the steps, gasping for air. When she finally looked up, she saw her reflection in the church's glass doors. For a moment, it was just her, normal and alone. Relief flooded through her. Maybe she had imagined everything. Maybe it was all just stress and fear playing tricks on her mind. Then the reflection smiled, and it wasn't her smile. The other girl was there, inside the glass, waving at her mockingly. "Did you really think you could run from yourself?" the voice seemed to whisper, though the glass couldn't possibly carry sound. Amara jumped up and burst through the church doors. Inside, a choir was practicing, and about 20 people were scattered in the pews. An older pastor with kind eyes looked up from his Bible when Amara stumbled in, wild-eyed and panting. "Please," Amara gasped. "I need help. There's someone. I don't know how to explain it." The pastor stood up and walked toward her slowly. "Calm down, my child. Take a breath. Tell me what happened." But before Amara could speak, a woman in the front pew let out a small shriek. She was pointing at the large mirror on the wall near the altar, a decorative piece that reflected the church's interior. In the mirror, standing right behind Amara, was the other girl. But when Amara spun around, there was no one there. When she looked back at the mirror, the girl was still visible, standing so close that in the reflection, they looked like they were touching. The pastor's eyes widened. He had seen it too. He quickly pulled out a small bottle of anointing oil from his pocket and began to pray in a loud voice. The choir members rushed forward, surrounding Amara, adding their voices to the prayer. But the girl in the mirror just laughed, and her laugh seemed to echo through the church despite the loud prayers. "You think prayers will work?" the mirror girl's voice cut through the noise. "I'm not a demon or a spirit. I'm her. I'm what she created. I'm the consequence of years of refusing wisdom, of pushing away guidance, of thinking she's always right. You can't pray me away. She has to face me." The pastor looked at Amara with a mixture of pity and concern. "Child, what have you done? What warnings did you ignore?" Amara's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in her life, she wanted her mother desperately. She wanted to tell her mother she was sorry, that she should have listened, that she should have gone to Emus for the ceremony. But her parents were hours away, and she was alone with this impossible thing that wore her face. The mirror girl spoke again, her voice now coming from every reflective surface in the church, the windows, the polished collection plates, even the screen of someone's phone. Tomorrow, Amara, I'm coming out fully. I'm going to live your life better than you ever could. I'm going to be the perfect version of stubborn, defiant you. And you? You're going to watch from inside the mirrors, trapped the way you've trapped yourself with your pride. The church erupted in louder prayers, people calling on the blood of Jesus, binding and casting out. But nothing changed. The girl in the mirror waved goodbye and faded away, leaving only Amara's normal reflection behind. Amara collapsed into a pew, her whole body shaking. The pastor sat beside her and said gently, "You need to tell me everything, child. And then we need to call your parents. This is beyond what we can handle here." Through her tears, Amara told him about the wedding, about refusing to go to Yumuse, about her mother's warnings that she had laughed at. The pastor listened carefully, nodding slowly, his face grave. "There are some traditions," he said quietly, "that exist for reasons we modern people have forgotten. Your mother's ceremony wasn't just superstition. It was protection. And now that protection is gone, and something has taken its place. Something you fed with your own defiance." He pulled out his phone and called Amara's mother. The conversation was brief and urgent. When he hung up, he told Amara, "Your parents are leaving Yumuse right now. They'll drive through the night to get here. But, child, we need to keep you away from mirrors until they arrive. Come, we have a small room in the back of the church with no reflective surfaces. You stay there, and we'll keep watch." Amara followed him like a lost child, all her bravado gone. As they walked through the church, she caught one last glimpse of herself in a window. The other girl was there, watching, waiting. And this time, Amara saw something that made her blood turn to ice. The mirror girl was holding something. It looked like a door handle, and she was slowly turning it, as if she was opening a door between her world and Amara's. Amara spent the longest night of her life in that small church room, sitting on a wooden chair with no windows, no mirrors, nothing that could show her reflection. The pastor had removed even the metal cross from the wall because its polished surface could catch her image. Church members took turns sitting outside her door, praying in shifts, their voices rising and falling like waves. Every time Amara closed her eyes, she saw the mirror girl's face, that twisted version of herself, turning that impossible door handle. What was on the other side of that door? What would happen when it finally opened all the way? These questions tormented her through the dark hours, but the answers would come far sooner and far more terribly than she could have imagined. Her parents arrived just as the sun was rising, their car screeching to a halt outside the church. Amara heard her mother's voice before she saw her, that familiar sound that she had ignored and dismissed so many times. Now it was the sweetest sound in the world. The door burst open, and Chinyo rushed in, pulling Amara into her arms. For the first time since she was a small child, Amara buried her face in her mother's shoulder and sobbed. "Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have listened. I should have come to Yumuse. I should have." "Shoo, my daughter," Chinyo said, stroking her hair. But her voice was tight with worry, not relief. "We will talk about apologies later. Right now, we need to understand what we are facing." Emeka stood in the doorway, his usually strong face drawn with exhaustion and fear. He had driven all night without stopping, pushing their old car to its limits on dark highways. Behind him stood an elderly woman Amara had never seen before. She was small and thin, wearing traditional wrapper and head tie despite the early hour, and she carried a leather bag that looked ancient. Her eyes were sharp and knowing, and when she looked at Amara, the girl felt like every secret she'd ever kept was laid bare. "This is Mama Ekwensi," Chinyo said quietly. "She is one of the elders from Yumuse. She came with us because she knows about these things. About what happens when the old protections are refused. Mama Ekwensi moved into the room slowly, her joints creaking with age. She circled Amara like a doctor examining a patient, clicking her tongue and shaking her head. Finally, she spoke in Igbo, and Chinua translated, though Amara understood enough to catch the meaning. The child has created an echo, Mama Ekwensi said. Every act of defiance, every rejection of wisdom, every time she chose her own way over guidance, she was feeding this echo. It grew in the spirit realm, taking her shape, learning her patterns. The ceremony in Umuse would have cut the connection, would have prevented the echo from gaining enough power to manifest. But now. She trailed off, shaking her head again. Now what? Amara asked, her voice small. What's going to happen to me? Mama Ekwensi fixed her with those penetrating eyes. The echo wants to replace you. It wants to step out of the mirrors and live your life while you take its place, trapped in the reflection world. It is already halfway through the door between worlds. By nightfall today, if we do nothing, the exchange will be complete. The room fell silent except for the distant sounds of morning Lagos waking up outside, car horns, vendors' calls, the rumble of generators starting up. Normal life continuing while Amara's world crumbled. What can we do? Emeka asked, his voice rough with emotion. There must be something. We didn't drive all night to hear that our daughter is lost. Mama Ekwensi opened her leather bag and pulled out several items, a small clay pot, a bundle of dried herbs, a white cloth, and a mirror no bigger than her palm. The mirror was old, its surface cloudy and spotted with age. There is one way, she said. But it is dangerous, and it requires something from Amara that she has never given before. True humility. True surrender. True willingness to listen and obey without question. She looked at Amara hard. Can you do this, child? Can you finally set aside your pride? Amara nodded frantically. Yes, anything. I'll do whatever you say. Mama Ekwensi's expression didn't change. Words are easy when we are afraid. The test will come when fear fades and pride returns. But we have no choice. We must try. She held up the small mirror. This mirror is special. It is called the mirror of truth. It shows not what is, but what could be. To defeat your echo, you must enter the reflection world yourself. You must face her directly, not as enemies, but as teacher and student. I don't understand, Amara said. How can I teach her anything? She's everything I am, only worse. No, Mama Ekwensi corrected. She is everything you chose to be, without the small voice inside that sometimes whispered doubt, that sometimes felt guilt, that sometimes wished you had listened. She is you without conscience. To defeat her, you must show her what she lacks. You must demonstrate wisdom, humility, and the strength that comes from listening to others. You must become what you refuse to be. Chinua gripped Amara's hand tightly. My daughter, this is dangerous. If you fail, if your pride rises up even once while you're in that world, you will be trapped there forever. The echo will take your place, and we will lose you. Amara looked at her mother's face, seeing the love and fear there, seeing all the years of patient guidance she had thrown back in her mother's face. She thought about all the times Chinua had tried to help her, warn her, protect her, and how she had responded with contempt and defiance. Shame burned through her, hotter than fear. I have to try, Mama. This is my fault. I created this thing by being stubborn and foolish. I have to be the one to stop it. Mama Ekwensi nodded approvingly. Good. That is the first step. Accepting responsibility. Now, we must prepare you. Sit down and listen carefully. I will tell you the rules of the reflection world, and you must remember every word. Your life depends on it. For the next 2 hours, Amara listened as she had never listened before. Mama Ekwensi explained that the reflection world was like a mirror of Lagos, but everything was reversed and strange. Time moved differently there. People were echoes of their real selves, showing their true natures without any masks. The echo that wore Amara's face was queen of this world, growing stronger every moment. To defeat her, Amara would have to make the echo understand what she herself was only beginning to learn, that strength without wisdom is just foolishness, and pride without humility leads only to destruction. But how do I make her understand that? Amara asked. If she's me without conscience, why would she care about wisdom or humility? Because, Mama Ekwensi said, pulling out the herbs and beginning to grind them in the clay pot, deep down, even an echo knows it is incomplete. It knows something is missing. Your task is to show her what the missing piece is, and why she needs it. If you can do this, if you can make her choose to rejoin you willingly instead of replacing you, then you both will be whole. You will become who you were meant to be all along. The old woman mixed the ground herbs with water from a clay jar, creating a paste that smelled of earth and something sharper, something that made Amara's nose wrinkle. She painted symbols on Amara's forehead, cheeks, and hands, chanting softly in a language so old that even Chinyu didn't recognize all the words. These marks will protect you in the reflection world, Mama Ekwensi explained. They will keep you anchored to this reality so you can find your way back. But they will fade after 3 hours. If you have not succeeded by then, you will be trapped forever. 3 hours. Amara's heart hammered in her chest. 3 hours to face herself, to teach what she didn't fully understand herself, to become humble when pride had been her defining trait for 17 years. The pastor had been standing quietly in the corner, and now he stepped forward. Before you go, child, let me pray for you. He placed his hands on her head and prayed with such intensity that Amara felt warmth spreading through her body. When he finished, he looked at her with kind but serious eyes. Remember, Amara, the greatest strength is knowing when you need help. The bravest thing is admitting you were wrong. Your echo doesn't know these things. That is your advantage. Mama Ekwensi held up the small mirror. Are you ready? Amara looked at her parents. Her father's eyes were wet with tears he was too proud to let fall. Her mother's face was a mask of barely controlled terror. But both of them nodded at her, encouraging her, believing in her even though she had given them little reason to over the years. I'm ready, Amara said. Mama Ekwensi began to chant, swirling the mirror in a circular motion. The cloudy surface began to clear, and Amara saw not her reflection but a swirling grey mist. The mist began to pour out of the mirror like smoke, surrounding Amara, filling her nose and mouth. She tried to cry out, but no sound came. The world tilted sideways, and she felt herself falling into the mirror surface as if it were a pool of water. When the dizziness stopped and she could see clearly again, Amara found herself standing in the middle of a street that looked almost like her neighborhood in Lagos, but wrong. The buildings were the same, but their colors were too bright, almost painful to look at. The sky was a strange purple-gray, with no sun visible. People walked past her, but they moved in jerky, unnatural ways, like characters in a video game with bad animation. When she tried to speak to a woman walking by, the woman's face turned toward her, and Amara gasped. The woman had no features, just smooth skin where her eyes and mouth should be. This was the reflection world, and it was far more horrible than Mama Ekwensi had described. Amara turned in a slow circle, trying to get her bearings. The symbols on her skin glowed faintly with a soft blue light. She could feel them tingling, reminding her that they were counting down. 3 hours. She had to find the echo and somehow convince her to merge back together. But where would the echo be? Amara closed her eyes and tried to think. If the echo was her defiant self, where would she go? What would she do? The answer came quickly: she would go home. She would go to Amara's apartment and start living her life, getting ready to cross over when the time came. Amara started walking toward her apartment building. The streets of the reflection world were confusing, with some roads leading to places they shouldn't and others ending in blank walls. But she kept moving, following her instinct, and finally, she stood before the reversed version of her building. Everything was backward here, the entrance was on the left instead of the right, the stairs spiraled the opposite direction. She climbed the stairs slowly, her heart pounding. When she reached her floor, she saw that the door to her apartment was open. Light spilled out into the hallway, and she could hear music playing inside. Her music, her favorite songs. Amara stepped through the doorway and stopped dead. The apartment looked exactly like her real one, except everything was positioned in mirror image. And sitting on the couch, wearing Amara's favorite outfit, scrolling through a phone that looked like Amara's phone, was the Echo. The Echo looked up and smiled. It was Amara's smile, but colder, sharper. Well, well. You actually came. I didn't think you'd have the courage. I thought you'd hide in that church forever. We need to talk, Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady. The Echo laughed and stood up. Now that they were face to face, Amara could see the differences. The Echo's eyes were harder, with no warmth in them at all. Her posture was aggressive, challenging. She looked like Amara if all the soft parts had been burned away. Talk about what? About how you're going to try to stop me. Save it. In a few hours, I'll cross over, and you'll stay here. I'll be the new Amara, the better Amara. I'll live your life without all your secret doubts and hidden fears. I'll be pure confidence, pure strength. Pure foolishness, Amara said quietly. That's what you'll be. The Echo's expression darkened. Excuse me. I was foolish, Amara continued, taking a step forward. All these years, I thought being strong meant never listening, never bending, never admitting I could be wrong. But that's not strength. That's just pride. And pride without wisdom is nothing but a path to destruction. The Echo's face twisted with anger. You're weak. That's why you're saying this. You're scared, so you're pretending that listening to others is somehow better than trusting yourself. No, Amara said, and she was surprised by how calm her voice sounded. I'm saying that trusting yourself and listening to others aren't opposites. The strongest people know when to ask for help. The wisest people learn from everyone around them. I refused to do that, and look where it got me. Look where it got us. We are both incomplete. The Echo moved faster than Amara expected, crossing the space between them in an instant. She grabbed Amara by the shoulders, her grip painfully tight. I am not incomplete. I am everything you should have been. You're everything I was afraid to be, Amara corrected, not flinching away. You're what happens when pride is allowed to grow without any check, without any balance. You're strong, yes, but you're also alone. Completely alone. Because you can't connect with anyone, can't accept love or guidance or help from anyone. For just a moment, something flickered in the Echo's eyes. Something that might have been doubt or pain or recognition. But then it was gone, replaced by rage. Get out, the Echo hissed. Get out of my apartment. It's not your apartment, Amara said. It's mine. And I want it back. But more than that, I want you back. You're part of me, the part that I let grow twisted and wrong. But you don't have to stay that way. We can be whole again. We can be strong and humble. Confident and wise. We can be better together. The Echo shoved Amara away so hard that she stumbled backward, crashing into a table. I don't need you. I don't need anyone. That's the whole point. And that's exactly why you fail, Amara said, getting back to her feet. Her arm hurt where she'd hit the table, but she ignored the pain. You think you don't need anyone, but that's the biggest lie of all. Everyone needs someone. Everyone needs guidance, love, support. That's not weakness. That's being human. The Echo screamed, a sound of pure frustration and rage. The lights in the apartment flickered. The walls seemed to pause. Stop talking. Just stop. But Amara couldn't stop. The words were pouring out of her now, words she needed to say as much for herself as for the echo. I was wrong. I was wrong to ignore my mother. I was wrong to think I knew everything. I was wrong to push away everyone who tried to help me. And the worst part is, I hurt people. I hurt my mother, who only ever wanted the best for me. I hurt my father, who worked hard every day to give me a good life. I hurt teachers and friends and neighbors. And for what? For pride. For the feeling of being right. It wasn't worth it. The echo's hands were trembling now. Her face was twisted, not with anger anymore, but with something else. Something that looked almost like pain. They wanted to control you, the echo said, but her voice was quieter now, uncertain. They wanted to make you weak. No, Amara said gently, taking a step closer. They wanted to keep me safe. They wanted to share their wisdom so I wouldn't have to make all the same mistakes they did. That's what love does. It guides. It protects. It teaches. A tear ran down the echo's face, and that was when Amara knew she had a chance. The echo was crying. She had emotion, which meant she wasn't as empty as she pretended to be. I don't know how to be anything else, the echo whispered. I only know how to be defiant. How to resist. How to fight. Then let me teach you, Amara said, extending her hand. Let me show you that there's another way. We can be strong and still listen. We can be confident and still humble. We can be ourselves and still accept help. Come back. Merge with me again. Let's be whole. The echo stared at Amara's outstretched hand. For a long moment, nothing happened. The apartment was silent except for their breathing. Then, slowly, the echo reached out her own hand. Their fingers were inches apart when the apartment door burst open. 3 figures stood in the doorway, and Amara's blood ran cold. They were echoes too, but not of her. She recognized them immediately. They were echoes of the queens of Victoria Island, the girls she had humiliated years ago. But here, in the reflection world, they were twisted and terrible, their faces cruel, their eyes gleaming with malice. Well, the lead echo said, her voice like broken glass. Look who decided to visit our world. Little Amara, who thought she was so tough. You humiliated us once. Now it's our turn.